Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you here. This is our Middle East Users Conference. It's the largest event of its kind ever in the history of the Middle East. We expect about 2,000 people here, a little more than that, actually. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, special guests from all over the Gulf, and you GIS professionals, men and women, and everyone else. So thank you very much for being here. We have a busy day planned. I will start it for about an hour, and then we'll move into technical sessions which do deep dives on some of the technologies during the morning and in the afternoon. Before we go further, I'd like to especially thank the Abu Dhabi government for facilitating this meeting space and hosting us here. They have been wonderful hosts for us, and I'm very honored and pleased. As well as a number of commercial customers, partners that have helped us sponsor this conference and made it come alive. Thanks to you as well. The purpose of this meeting has been for the last 2 decades getting together and basically being together, meeting old friends, meeting new friends, learning from each other, learning about what it is to be a GIS professional, what it is to be a GIS user. And in that space, it's important that we learn from each other. I have a lot to say, and I will take quite a bit of time doing it. But more importantly, you have lots more to say, sharing your real work, sharing your experience in doing this work, and that's a rich catalog of experience indeed. It's also about building new relationships, and I like to start off our user meetings in the beginning by having you meet one new person that you don't know. Many of you know everybody in the room, but many of you don't. So if you could take just 1 minute and turn around and meet one person and introduce them to yourself and let them introduce themselves to you, I would appreciate that. Could you do it for me right now? Just stand up and meet somebody new, one new person. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Shh. That's it. That's all you get. This meeting is all about relationships and sharing. And so I like to start off the meeting doing that because it creates us more as a family. And I like that notion of friendship. I learn from my friends. That's how I basically learn. And I know my friends learn from me in a kind of network. And it helps me understand things better. And that's a big purpose of this meeting, is understanding not only the technology, which is exciting, but also the context of the technology, what it means. The work that you do is part of a global network. We are in the process of wiring up the world digitally, measuring everything that moves and changes, turning it into computational fabric about space. Just like hundreds of years ago, the invention of longitude and latitude gave us a framework. We're now digitizing that. And you, as professionals in many fields and many different backgrounds, are leveraging that framework to do various kinds of work. And your work is pervasive. It's becoming important in health and in efficiency for government operations, in business, in education, in almost everything that we do socially around the world. And it's important to realize that it's not you just as individuals, but you as part of a network, because our joint connections are measuring and sharing that information at the same time. These are a few examples that I gathered from your work here in the region. The Department of Lands and Survey in Jordan has implemented a web system for land records information, and here in Abu Dhabi, this thematic map showing variations of value in property in the capital district. GIS is being used in these examples, like in Oman and in Yemen and in Abu Dhabi, for carrying out the census. housing census, housing and population census, and also agricultural census. These examples I like because they're showing human health, and the Ministry of Agriculture in Egypt is looking at things like spread of emphysema and flu. Also in Jordan, important hospital facilities. And this series of maps in the right in Afghanistan is showing how GIS is being used to pick the best place for new hospitals and healthcare facilities. Real estate is coming alive with GIS. We can search and discover properties for economic development like these in Aqaba, and also here in Abu Dhabi, rent rate density, so we can see the more expensive parts of the city to live. In Qatar, public safety applications are bringing together all the different tabular data sets that are necessary to get a common operating picture of public safety. And base mapping in Iraq is being used to improve national defense and national security. These examples here in Abu Dhabi show with the GeoPortal the bringing together of all the different data sets that live in different parts of the emirate, and likewise in the SDI vision of Bahrain is articulating and bringing together in the Central Informatics and Telecommunications Organization the links to distributed information across that entire country. We're going to see a demonstration of this later today. This vision of SDI is taking individual pieces of work in one department or one agency and bringing it together so that we can share and leverage our knowledge across the organization. In local government, these examples show extremely great value in land use planning, in general information sharing. In Libya, for example, in Saudi Arabia, the wonderful work there that's happening by Mumra in the municipalities level, and it goes on and on. In telecommunications, these examples show the Etisalat, for example, the GIS system here in Egypt, and Etisalat here in UAE, and in Qatar, the telecom organization is wiring up basically the entire wire as well as cellular networks. Utilities are beyond, of course, telecommunication, electricity and water, the water authorities. And again, looking across these examples, we see just a whole variety of asset management work, in strategic planning work, in engineering work. We are wiring work to databases. So as we do utility work, transactions are going on, and the database is becoming alive that we can use in other departments. In the oil and gas sector, here in the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, we see exploration and base mapping work, geologic exploration work. In Saudi Aramco, we're seeing everything from pipeline applications to facility management and, of course, exploration there as well. One of my favorite areas is education, building the next generation of population. And these examples here in higher ed, UAE, and also in colleges, technology classes, are the beginning of what I think will become pervasive educational foundation about spatial stuff. Here in Abu Dhabi particularly, but also in Jordan, we're seeing it brought into K through 12 schools to help kids get spatially literate using quantitative tools of GIS. In the environment, we're seeing it in Kuwait, one of the most sophisticated environmental agencies with respect to measuring, quantifying pollution, and remediating pollution. Everything there is measured and available in these dashboards. And we also see the great work here in Abu Dhabi, in the environmental agency, where for almost a decade we've seen GIS be a foundation for environmental monitoring and measurement. This year, Esri gave out a series of presidential leadership awards last summer at the International Users Conference. They include these here shown, with Saudi Post driving efficiency, and Riyadh Development Authority doing urban planning, and Saudi Aramco again in the petroleum space. In Abu Dhabi, we saw great work going here on the Statistical Center, and in Kuwait, again, the Environmental Authority received this award. And in Bahrain, the Central Informatics and Telecommunication Organization, which brought together the SDI for that country. The Abu Dhabi government particularly is not simply our host, but they are a special relationship with Esri. They have been for many years. These are a few examples specifically of their work in health, in capital district planning and transportation. In the Statistics Center, the Presidential Award this year, and in the Abu Dhabi Water. I'd like to particularly pay attention to the Environmental Agency with Her Highness Razan, who is not only doing great quantitative and GIS work here, but also spreading her knowledge and giving inspiration to leaders like Jane Goodall, hosting here in Abu Dhabi last year the Eye on Earth conference, reaching out to work with organizations like IUCN, making the world a better place. So I appreciate her contributions and wanted to acknowledge that. This year, we are entering in fact, at this particular conference, a new relationship with the Abu Dhabi government, and I'd like to invite His Excellency Mohammed Bouardi to come for a moment and tell us a couple of words about that. So, His Excellency, could you join me here, please? Thank you.
Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة السيد جاك دنجرمان رئيس معهد بحوث الأنظمة البيئية إزري، السيدات والسادة ضيوفي دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بفضل القيادة الرشيدة لصاحب السمو الشيخ خليفة بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة حفظه الله، وبفضل رعاية وتوجيهات الفريق أول سمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان ولي عهد أبو ظبي نائب القائد الأعلى للقوات المسلحة رئيس المجلس التنفيذي، فإن حكومة أبو ظبي تواصل السير على نهج التميز والعمل الدؤوب لتحقيق رؤية قيادتنا الرشيدة في جميع المجالات الاقتصادية منها والاجتماعية، وخاصة في مجال التعليم وتطوير التكنولوجيا. حضورنا الكريم، إنه لمن دواعي سرورنا استضافة هذا المؤتمر والذي يتم تنظيمه بالتعاون مع معهد بحوث الأنظمة البيئية إزري، أحد الشركاء الاستراتيجيين لحكومة أبو ظبي في مجال تكنولوجيا نظم المعلومات الجغرافية. كما يسعدنا استضافة كافة الحضور من خبراء وأصحاب قرار ومعنيين من حكومات ومؤسسات ومنظمات عالمية من مختلف دول العالم لمواكبة آخر التطورات في نظم المعلومات الجغرافية، وذلك يتماشى مع تعزيز موقع إمارة أبو ظبي فيما يتعلق بأفضل الممارسات في هذا المجال. إن البيانات والخدمات الجيومكانية التي تستخدم في نظم المعلومات الجغرافية تسلط الأضواء على أهمية الموقع في جوانب مختلفة من نشاطاتنا اليومية. وكتوجه عالمي تقوم نظم المعلومات الجغرافية بشكل أساسي بتمكين العمليات والإجراءات بين الجهات المختلفة، ويسهم ذلك بتسريع عملية التطور والارتقاء بمستوى الخدمات الحكومية بشكل عام، كالتخطيط والتطوير والتحليل وإدارة الأداء، بما يدعم عملية اتخاذ القرار على مختلف الأصعدة. وإن تحقيق ذلك يتطلب تخطيطاً وتنفيذاً منهجياً ودعماً متواصلاً من القيادة، وتعاوناً بناءً وإطاراً متكاملاً للحوكمة فيما بين الجهات والقطاعات المختلفة. وفي أبوظبي، واستناداً إلى استراتيجية الحكومة الإلكترونية، يقوم برنامج البيانات المكانية بالمضي قدماً لمواكبة التوجه العالمي والوصول إلى موقع ريادي في هذا المجال. وتعتبر الشراكة الاستراتيجية بين حكومة أبوظبي وإزري خطوة هامة نحو تحقيق الاستفادة من المثلى من كافة الخدمات والإمكانيات ذات الصلة لتعزيز بناء القدرات وتحقيق رؤية الحكومة نحو مجتمع ناضج جيومكانياً. وختاماً، نشكر لكم حضوركم ونتمنى لكم الاستفادة من المؤتمر وفعالياته، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jack.
Thank you, Your Highness. I appreciate it very much. One special word I want to say is that GIS is enabled by the technology. In some ways, that's the easy part. It also is enabled by hard work, by lots of, for example, technicians and leaders, and Abu Dhabi has many of those. But also it's enabled by leadership. And in my real experience around the world, you, Your Highness, have a special understanding and insight about what this will bring and mean. So I want to just simply say thank you for your leadership. It's a leadership not only for Abu Dhabi, but it stands bold in the entire Middle East and in the entire world. So thank you very much for your very kind support on this.
Thank you very much.
I would next like to invite His Highness Rashid Mansouri, if he's available. Mansouri, please. I guess we are going to sign this new partnership between our organizations. Should we just do it?
Yes,
do you mind overseeing it? Making sure he doesn't make a mistake?
And you.
And me, oh, me. Okay, especially me, perhaps. Okay. Please. That's good. I can keep this? Thank you. It's my great pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. We should maybe be for the press, the three of us.
Yeah.
They're saying get together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much once again.
Jack, if you may step here, please, Jack.
Yes. Thank you, Dean. Oh, okay.
I would like to present this in appreciation for the effort you've been doing in this field, and we very much saying thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. My great pleasure. Thank you. I know that you are a lover of nature, and so a good friend of mine who is an artist of California flowers, this is a kind, an expression to you for all of the, well, thank you for all of the relationship that we've had over the years.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Rashid. The next part of this morning, I'd like to talk about the vision of this conference, GIS, opening our world. And this will have different meaning for each of you, technical or leadership. What does this actually mean? Let's start with this. The world that you and I live in is changing rapidly. We know this. Population growth, economic development, environmental change and degradation, many negative things, but on the other hand, many positive things. We're living in an unprecedented time with respect to scientific discovery and technical advancement in health and in almost every aspect of human existence. We have more connections by way of the internet. We also have data about almost everything. But data is not enough. What we need at this moment, I think, in history, is a way to integrate all of this information and create better outcomes so that the footprints of human change that are being made result in a better future. Geography is our common platform. It's a platform for understanding our world. It brings together all of our information, all of our ologies, and GIS makes it come alive. It allows us to integrate our information effectively and apply it to specific kinds of applications. And maps themselves are a kind of language for storytelling. GIS is fundamentally about integration. It allows us to integrate all of the ologies, like the geology and the sociology and the hydrology and all of the scientific space can be integrated using space as a common way to bring it together. Geography also allows us to break down some of the barriers in our organizations. Organizational, sectorial organization is fundamental to the modern organization, yet it can also introduce barriers for sharing and collaboration and going to the future in a more holistic way. GIS solves that problem in the digital space and facilitates a kind of common language, one that we can understand together and tell stories about circumstance together. Today, GIS is advancing. GIS is becoming more powerful, easier to use, 3D. It's becoming real time, so we're wiring up all of these measurements, and there's more data. Remote sensing and GPS are allowing us to see virtually everything that changes and integrate it into quantitative tools. The big data explosion that's occurring means that we have to be able to stream this large amount into spatial context so that we can actually use it. And at the same time, computers are getting faster. The networks are getting bigger. We are moving to devices. We are moving to the world of apps, so I can see everything, like where is the traffic? Even one of my friends said, where are the fish to go fishing? I heard this morning. It was very good. So we are getting used to this notion of device app connectivity back to geographic knowledge. And that's evolving in the consumer space in the same way that science is evolving. We're moving to big science, being able to deal with big data sets. The cyber infrastructure is providing us a new foundation for understanding. Pervasive geographic understanding is in the clouds. It's emerging. And it will enable us to see our world differently. It'll help us understand and create, I think, a common framework for collaboration and integration of geography into everything. These trends in total are evolving what we normally think of as GIS. Traditionally, GIS has been a desktop tool and a server tool, and that's primarily where we are in the enterprise. But we're moving into a new platform. I'll just call it the web platform or the cloud web platform. And it allows us to connect all of our servers and services to a dynamic virtual environment of web maps that can be integrated. And those web maps can be seen by anything, anywhere, anytime. Any device can connect to real-time geography. And we sort of see that a little with consumer apps like Where's the Traffic, Where's the Fish? But imagine we had that power unleashed for running government, for managing government, for seeing what's going on at any one time. Cloud GIS, this new pattern, enables pervasive access. We can connect these desktop technologies and server technologies to the cloud, our enterprise systems, and then make them available by way of any device. And that means making plentiful what has been scarce. Even ourselves, our GIS professional selves, have been locking up data too much. Not philosophically, of course, but technologically. This solution means that I can change the whole user experience. I can provide access outward. And also this cloud GIS has a new kind of medium, the web map. The web map means I can connect real-time measurements, social media, imagery, traditional maps, big data, spreadsheets into a web map and publish them so that anybody can view them on any device. We'll see this in a demonstration in a couple of minutes. It also means that our traditional GIS of being departmentally segmented has a new way to integrate the departments, not simply putting it into one common database, but putting into these web maps that allow mashing up, sharing, visualization, cross-fertilization of our data. This is a much more agile architecture. In the past, in the center of that cloud, we would have had a database CAN, a DBMS. But it was difficult because everybody had to agree on a common data model. And some of you I know did that. Qatar is a good example. In the 90s, they forced one single data model, which was the right thing to do at the time. But today, this new cloud web map architecture means that we can share without normalizing everything to one model. Organizations are starting to adopt this pattern here in Abu Dhabi and elsewhere, skinning the cloud, putting data up there, and letting other organizations use it and share it. Both inside the organization, like Shell Oil is doing this all over the world. They put it into their own cloud, and instead of having 400 users at Shell doing the work, they now have almost 5,000 users because it's become much more accessible. All of that just within the last 6 months. This diagram is meant to represent something slightly different. A year ago, at this conference, in this building, the Eye on Earth conference showed for the first time this cloud architecture where the European Environmental Agency put all of their data in the cloud. And so did the World Bank, and so did UN Environmental Program. And they were able to use each other's data, each other's web map dynamically. And that was very exciting. Now, there are actually thousands of people that are sharing some aspects of their information in this open environment. And it's just, so numbers are important in a way. We released this technology in June. We started making a few million maps. 2 weeks ago, we were making 140 million maps a day, exponentially growing. And it's only about 17 weeks into it. This is kind of an architecture like Facebook. It's Facebook for mapping, actually. I can share my maps as web maps in the cloud. They're connected to my services, and other people can use those maps, they can look at them, they can interact with them, they can combine them and do really interesting things. This is going to change the world. It's going to actually be a kind of global, but also organizational pattern for bringing the different departments together. It changes the discussion. Geography as a platform, the theme of this conference, will open our world not only through the enabling technology, like we're seeing now, but also the adoption of this by people who can get value to accomplish their work better. That's the bottom line for most of it. It's also creating at the same time a new culture of collaboration. I will share with you, and we can do with common shared services more interesting things. We can look at the relationship between health patterns like cancer and pollution that might be invasive. And we can do that just as amateur epidemiologists. This excites me a lot. We will make new discoveries as a result of it. We'll reimagine what GIS is about. The second part of my talk this morning is about work that Esri is doing. This is work in service to you. We do this by way of our product, ArcGIS. Most of you know that we release this product about once every year or two. And this year we released 10.1. It's a major step forward. It's much easier. How many of you here are actually using 10.1? "23, 24. No, I'm just joking. About 20% of you. It has much more functionality, it's easier, and it's also integrated with the cloud. If we look at this diagram, we see some pieces. We see the traditional desktop, which is part of it. We see the server, which is a fundamental part of it, offering services. We also see a server in the cloud, online services, providing global base maps and other content, and a shared environment. And then we see the world of apps through devices and browsers. This is a big system, a mega system, and you could apply this diagram to the whole world. The world is meant to represent here content, or just to your organization, your city, your emirate, your utility company, or the like. This provides incremental enhancements. That is, 10.1 provides incremental enhancements, but it also provides transformational opportunities. I'll talk more about that in a minute. The incremental enhancements part are largely feature function, but the transformational part is more than that. How many of you have a smartphone? Most of you do. We live in a society with it. When I bought this phone, I didn't really realize that I was buying myself into an ecosystem of Apple where there was music, there was apps, there was a whole bunch of things that were behind the physical phone. That's a system. Just like the ArcGIS system is now a system. It's not just the desktop, it's not just a device, it's not just a server, it's a complete ecosystem of services and applications implemented in an organization that's exciting. One of the parts this year that we've implemented is more content in the cloud. These are content services. Esri has spent tens of millions of dollars to buy content and put it into a cloud environment, or build collaboratively base maps for the world. Some of you have helped me in this regard, and I thank you for that. Topographic base maps, hydrologic base maps, bathymetric base maps, imagery base maps. This little diagram in the lower right shows last year this year, middle of next year. Imagery coverage. So we have bought all of the GOI and digital globe imagery, the complete satellite archive for the planet, and we're putting that into our cloud and providing it to our users for free, along with these other base maps, their services, as well as geocoding and place names, 30 million place names. So most of us think of ArcGIS as technology, but I want to just remind you that it's increasingly going to include demographic, topographic, base map content that helps our users start off and get going right away. In the desktop space, 10.1 is a better desktop. It has better visualization and it's faster. More automated labeling, generalization, so I can go from one scale to another scale totally automatically. Tools built for those of you who want to run national or regional or local base maps, people like Bayonet, for example, here in Abu Dhabi. It also has new streamlined workflow tools for editing and QA/QC. It also includes many dozens of new tools for analytics, tools that explain relationships, show correlations, describe time-space patterns, and give a better understanding of how our world, how our organization is working. We'll see lots of examples of this demonstrated right after lunch. 3D is a major topic at Esri. We are making it faster and more scalable and more beautiful for visualizing microgeographies like buildings, as well as landscapes and complete virtual cities. Our 3D data modeling has meant that we can add analytics to the 3D data models. So I can do shadow analysis or 3D buffer zones. Indeed, at 10.1, ArcGIS becomes a complete 3D GIS. And that's exciting because we live in a 3D world. We're also adding tools to edit in 3D. Some people would call that design. Last year, we acquired a company in Switzerland called Procedural. It has a product called City Engine, which is about designing as well as visualizing cities, urban planning environments. So I like the idea that GIS is not just static, it's about creating the future. It's about designing. So interactively, I can develop new 3D buildings and have a look at them, understand the impacts or consequences of my designs based on the same GIS database that I'm investing in for managing my city. LiDAR is a new data type. It's a kind of radar measuring everything. LiDAR data is now supported inside of ArcGIS, so we can look at 3D visualization, of course, but also do analytics over time. At 10.1, ArcGIS becomes a full integrated image processing systems. In the past, we have had GIS on one platform, and we've had image processing in another. We've tried to bring those together so I can, inside of my ArcGIS, do many of the common things that people want to do with image processing, both on the client side in the desktop, but also in the server with dynamic image processing. Things like orthorectification, color balancing, mosaicing, classification, all these common image things have been introduced into the GIS platform. However, this platform is also open, so some of our key partners like ITT have extended this platform with high-performance specialized tools that do feature extraction or hyperspectral analytics. At 10.1, we've connected the desktop to the server, so I can make a beautiful map on my desktop, right-click, and send it over to the server, and it turns it into a service automatically. Maps, analytics, data. I can also do the same thing and send it over to a cloud, like the Amazon cloud, and share it with everybody else. Now, that's a breakthrough, because it means I can connect the high-performance geospatial authoring system work that's done on the desktop with a GIS professional with everybody else in a few seconds. We'll see this demoed again and again this afternoon. The second technology I'll talk about is the server, and we basically rewrote the server at 10.1. And this is a matter of re-engineering it for 64-bit architecture, for high IT environments, so it's more scalable. It supports not only Windows, but now Linux, and it's much easier to both install and administrate. 10-minute setup instead of 8 hours of setup. And it has special administration tools that let me perform maintenance on this and tune it dynamically while it's being used. We also added simple things like dynamic web printing, and as a proud member of the OGC and other standards organizations, we have enhanced the support for open standards. Open standards are essential to make our system open and interoperable with other, both competitive and other IT technologies. 10.1 includes many apps, and I want you to pay attention to this. Apps for browsers, apps for the desktop, apps for devices. So most of you are used to going to the Apple iPhone and iStore and downloading some apps. At 10.1, we opened up a layer of technology for app development, and we're putting out ourselves a series or family of apps that people can download and simply configure. So instead of having a programmer write from scratch my application, I have an app that's ready to go and easily configured and has an SDK behind it so that developers can configure it. Mobile apps are one of the biggest areas of software development that we're working on for Windows, for iOS, for Android. Again, you see a pattern here of wanting to support all devices so that we not only have great editing and viewing and crowdsourced applications on the iPhone, but also on the Android phone. So we can support these both in unique forms, but also in the native platform for each of these devices. These are easily configured, so I don't have to use the exact workflow or the skin for which was created by the original author. They can be skinned for me. They can be customized for me. And below the configured app is a suite of developer tools. Let's pause here for a minute. Esri has historically been focused very much on end users for the GIS world, and many of you are those end users. But we also at 10.1 changed our direction quite a bit. We're saying we want to open up all of the lower level tools so that developers, sophisticated developers like some of you here, but also lightweight developers, have access to our APIs and our runtime technology for being able to create fast apps. Why are we doing that? Because it's advantageous to the GIS professionals that we have a huge partner environment of developers who build apps that run on the same enterprise systems that they have implemented. 10.1 finally provides solution templates. Our work in the past has been to concentrate on lower level tools that are generic and effective, but generic. We are extending those generic experiences with something called templates. So if I'm a water guy, I can download a template which is the best practices for a water map, the best practices for a data model for water, the best practices for some workflows. They can download that template, they can pour their data into it, they can configure the template and load and go. These are for our end users, but they're also for all of our business partners, and they express our best wisdom about how to configure the system for different industries. Local government, oil and gas, defense, security, land information, that kind of thing. This is going to accelerate and also standardize the kind of maps and workflows that our users do. It's leveraging best practices, and we're getting a lot of this template information from you so that we can accelerate deployment back to the global world of app interest. I've talked about the generic tools. I've talked about all the 10.1 generic enhancements. And since 10.0, we spent in the neighborhood of a couple $100 million, about $240 million, in just making enhancements. So those of you who have not deployed 10.1, I urge you to do so because it's a powerful platform. But 10.1 also has transformational opportunities, and the rest of this morning I'll talk about those in greater detail. If I'm a desktop user or a server user, I can connect to this thing called ArcGIS Online, Esri's cloud deployment, and from that ArcGIS Online instance, make my data pervasive, creating geography as a platform, the kind of Facebook for geography and maps. It's a big turning point for us. I have lived at Esri, I started it 43 years ago, through the period where we were on mainframes. How many of you here ran on mainframe computers? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You guys are old guys. I'm that way too. We migrated our technology in the 70s to mini computers, a kind of miniature version of a mainframe. When we did that, we went from a few dozen customers to hundreds of customers because we were able to use this new platform to expand what we had accomplished. In the 80s, we went from mini computers to workstations, and then we went to tens of thousands of users. When we moved to PCs, we went to hundreds of thousands, now millions of users with client-server computing. This turning point, what's happening this year, is not going to be one order of magnitude of shift when we move from client-server enterprise computing to the cloud. It's going to be multiple orders of growth in GIS deployment. It's going to mean that geography becomes a platform for organizations, the entire organization, not simply the GIS guys. It means GIS embedded into everything. And this was, to some extent, inevitable. How does this happen? It means, like the diagram shows here, GIS professionals connect to the cloud, but through consumer-like experiences, knowledge workers who have no knowledge about GIS can simply connect to intelligent web maps and use them. And executives can see information in a different form. And the public can see maps come alive. And these web maps, they work anywhere on anything. And also these web maps facilitate the integration of enterprise computing like SAP or ERP or like that stuff, enabling everyone to get at the platform. I know many of you have dreamt of this, and many of you have worked hard to do parts of this already. What I'm simply suggesting is we now have a generation step which is going to impact all GIS professionals everywhere in the world. This cloud GIS is now a fundamental part of ArcGIS. It's built into it, and it provides a backbone for users to manage how to access a kind of content management system, how to access their data. It provides intuitive mapping, which is free and open sourced. It allows sharing and collaboration across the organization, not simply in the GIS departments. Web and mobile access. It also, like I said, integrates with the enterprise and is open. It means it's open and standards-based. It will bring in any kind of geographic information based on standards, and it will output into standard APIs, OGC APIs, and web APIs, the geographic information. So it's a beautiful companion to to the rest of the IT infrastructure. This ArcGIS Online in this diagram shows how different departments or different organizations who have existing servers and desktops can share their information through a common catalog, this center aspect of the platform, and access it by any client, can be skinned and seen by any client. So ArcGIS Online can be configured for an organization. This top line of screens shows ArcGIS Online. If you go to the open web, that's what it looks like. There's a home page, there's a series of maps, and there's a series of groups that organize the data into groups for sharing, and there's web maps. But in the US government, EPA skinned it for their own application. The Eye on Earth people skinned it for their own application. Here in Abu Dhabi, it's been skinned for their own application. It's customized or configured. And that means that data can be shared in common, but remain with an identity for the organization that's sharing it and managing it. These web maps, I've talked to you about them. I should probably explain what they are, really. They take distributed services on different computers, and they can be mashed up into a web map. So a web map is a little series of pointers back to raw data that's being maintained, or raw services. And those web maps can be seen by any device. And they are not just visual things. They're not simply like a Google map. It's not just visualization. No, you can query them. Information can be popped up. They can be edited. And of course, when editing happens, it goes back to the original server and edits the service. And I can also run analytics. I can overlay things and do spatial analysis in this web environment. So the web map is magical as a big generation step to everything that preceded it. So one last thing I'll say about it is these web maps and the cloud environment has been fully integrated in with Microsoft's Office. In other words, not only are there browsers and mobile devices, but also if I'm an Excel user, I can connect to this big database in the sky and put spreadsheet information onto maps and make it come alive.